What you guys, got another video here for you on how to fix computers. We've got what to do when your computer is broken. So if your PC is broken, then you can use some of these tips and tricks to try and fix your issue. The first thing I would say you need to do is determine whether the actual PC is a software related issue or whether it's hardware related. I.e., if it's software, it could be the operating system, could be a driver related issue. If it's hardware, obviously a piece of hardware in the computer is failed or it's intermittently failing and it's not working properly. You can see we're not getting any display here from here, and that could be a number of different things. It could be related to drivers, it could be related to the graphics card, it could be a number of different things, and we're going to go through and troubleshoot this and diagnose it as best as we can and try to fix it. So if you don't have a lot of PC parts, then obviously this makes the job a little bit harder. So I've flipped it onto its back here, and this is looking inside the PC. We're going to power it on for the first time here where it's on its back so we can see what's happening. Now, fortunately for us, we do have diagnostic LED lights, which makes it a little bit easier to troubleshoot. If you don't have these, then it makes the job a little bit harder. So I'm looking at these and to see what the boot sequence is through these LED diagnostic lights to see what happens. And we've got a blue screen here. You can see K mode exception not handled. So that's a blue screen of error and then it shuts down. Now, does this mean it's a software related issue or a hardware related issue? We can see the light on the diagnostic LED has stuck on DRAM. Now, this video is not going to be a polished, edited video. It's just going to be me troubleshooting this PC and try to work out what's gone wrong with it and take you along for the ride. And hopefully you can try and work out for yourself before you know what the answer is at the end. So you can see the diagnostic light is flashing up DRAM. It will go through a sequence of colored lights here. And this is like to tell you whether it's the CPU, GPU, DRAM, and then it will go to boot. But sometimes it does go onto the boot sequence like so, and then it will jump back to the DRAM, and sometimes you'll get a display and sometimes you don't. So I'm just going to quickly record this little bit here. It does look like it says it's got a red light, but it is actually an orange light. So now we're going down to the boot LED light here. So what does that mean? What's happening to this computer? It's a little bit intermittent. At 1 minute it stays on DRAM, then it starts to try to boot, and then you get a blue screen like this, which says now WOF.sys, and you're getting an error code saying 0xC with 4 zeros and 221 on it. So that's what you're getting there. Now, a lot of people will do a search on the internet for this, but unfortunately there's tons of websites out there that have got tons of adverts on them with error codes on them just to make money. And again, there's the fixes for them are not always 100% accurate, and they can lead you down the wrong path. So doing searches for error codes don't always work. Now, I'm actually getting to the recovery console here, and that means now I can try something else. Now, I've never had display earlier on, so now I am getting display. So does this point towards a Windows related issue? So we're going to go ahead and try to reset this using the cloud download here and see if we can download and reinstall this onto the system. It's going to get the connection ready for us and download a fresh copy of Windows and basically reinstall it and reset the PC. Now, normally I would have an NVMe drive with Windows on it, and I would normally swap that out to see whether that fixes it. But we're getting an error code on a blue screen here as well. IRQL underscore not less or equal. And again, we're having issues there. So what I'm going to do, you can now see I try to reboot the PC, and all of a sudden we're getting that DRAM again, and it's now not giving us display or signal here. You can see that's happening on the screen. So it's a bit intermittent. So is this a Windows related problem, or is this a hardware issue? So I'm thinking it's more likely going to be hardware related at this stage. So what I did try to do is I tried to remove all of the RAM and use one of the RAM sticks and used every single slot on the board. It still didn't work, and it stayed on DRAM. And then I changed it to the other stick and I did exactly the same thing and tried every single slot on the board, and it was stuck on DRAM. We got no display whatsoever at this stage, and I cleared the CMOS and I tried to do a bunch of different things, but we're having issues here. So you can see I'm going through the sequence of switching around the RAM from each slot. I didn't want to show you the whole process of that because it would have been here for quite a while. So at this stage, I'm now thinking that it could be an hardware issue, because if it was Windows, you wouldn't be getting the DRAM light staying on like this. So it's an orange light and you can see it says DRAM on it. And this normally generally points towards either a memory issue or the memory slot issue or motherboard issue or something like that. It could be quite a few different things. So I use these LED diagnostic lights as a guide, and I don't sort of stick to it 100% because it could be something else that's causing it. And I've seen it happen before. So never rely on them 100% because it could lead you down somewhere else. So I tried removing the RAM and also cleaning the connectors because it was quite dusty, and also cleaned out the actual RAM channels with some contact cleaner to see whether I would get any different results with it. And it was still showing up DRAM during the boot process, and it wasn't getting to boot anymore. So I thought I'd remove the graphics card and try a different graphics card at this stage, because we're not getting any display. I wanted to make sure that the graphics card is functioning okay. And look at the dust on that card, it's terrible. So I'm going to quickly pull another graphics card in here, and it's going to have no power to it. It's just a cheap card, and basically you can use one of these cards as a tester, and that's what I generally do with issues like this, because swapping out parts is probably the easiest and quickest way of troubleshooting and diagnosing problems with your computer. Graphics card is definitely one of them. So if you're looking to get into PC repair, having another card to test like this, which is known good, is probably the best way to go about troubleshooting and fixing PC problems. So we're going to quickly test this. And so now we've got the graphics card changed. That's the only thing that's changed. I've got one stick of RAM in the first bank, and these sort of things can sort of really make you start going round in circles, because at first we was getting display, we started getting a bit of error code up on the screen, and now we're not getting any of those error codes anymore. It's gone away completely. So does that mean that it wasn't a Windows issue and it was related to something else? And the PC was acting very weird at the time of me making this video. So the diagnostic LED lights are now going through its sequence. It's now onto boot, and it is now going to a black screen, and you can see Tough Gaming here, but there is no Windows circle going round here to load Windows. So does that mean Windows is corrupt? But it went straight to DRAM. So that's where we're at right now. We can now see we've gone straight to DRAM from the boot sequence, and it went straight into that. Really tells me what I think I'd need to know. And this is the problem with issues. So I'm just checking to see whether the pump is actually working here, whether it's pushing water through these tubes, and I can feel vibration and water going through, or liquid going through the tubes. So I think the pump is working okay. I don't have any spare RAM here, but I do have another board which I can check to see. And again, at this stage, you might be shouting at the screen saying it's a Windows related issue, but I don't think that is the problem, because it's going straight to DRAM, which tells me it's a memory issue or something along those lines. So I've got a hunch, and I'm going to go with it, and I'm going to ignore the Windows part, and we're going to go straight into the next phase, which is to remove the board from the computer. I want to check that CPU as well. And troubleshooting is a process of elimination, and I will generally go through and check all of the components to make sure. But you can see it's now going straight to DRAM. We're not getting any display on the screen whatsoever. And again, it could be related to a GPU, but we swapped the GPU out. We're now got another GPU in there, so it can't be the same problem with two GPUs. So it tells me the GPU is generally okay, and it's more than likely going to be something else, unless the slot in the board is broken. So that's what another thing that's going through my mind. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to remove and turn this off and remove the CPU. I'm going to check the CPU, and while we're at it, I'll probably take the board out and take all the components out, because I do have another board here and I can test it on there to see whether we get any sort of post or anything like that, because we're not getting post either. So that's the big issue. We're not even getting a display anymore, or even can't get to the BIOS. which is quite worrying. But for you people that want to learn PC repair, the first thing you should be doing is putting a clean install on that system. And if you get the same problems from that computer, you know that it's not a software related issue because you've just put a fresh, clean operating system on there. And that's the most easiest way to quickly determine whether it's a software related issue or a hardware related issue. And once you know it's not software, you can then go straight to the hardware diagnostic process, and it shouldn't take you too long. So I'm going to be removing the CPU here. Now, if you're looking to get into PC repair for desktop computers, I would say definitely get yourself a cheap GPU like this one. You can pick these up pretty cheap. Just make sure it's known good and working properly. And also get yourself some DDR4 and DDR5 RAM. And also get yourself a known good working power supply that you can trust. And that way you can bypass the power supply inside of the computer. And it doesn't take too long. So here we have a tiny mark on this CPU here on the bottom. You can see it here. Now, I don't know whether I've touched that with a bit of thermal compound on my hand or whether it was a mark on the actual CPU, like a burn mark. Now, there's no compound on the actual pins on the board. So I'm going to get some isopropanol alcohol and rub this and see if it comes off. Hopefully, it's just a bit of compound from my finger because there is a little bit on my finger I can see. So maybe I just got a little bit on the bottom of the chip there. But they're the things to look out for. And we can move this to one side. So the process of troubleshooting and diagnosing an issue is to basically, in my method here, is to swap out parts until we can see the problem go away. And if that happens, then we know it's one of the other parts that we've swapped out that was causing the problem. It's probably the quickest and the easiest way for troubleshooting. And the reason I say this is because in the field of break fix, you would have a bunch of known good working parts and you would swap them out until the problem disappears. And that's the easiest method of troubleshooting an issue. Now, if you want to go down the route of buying thermal cameras and all this sort of stuff, then by all means do so. But they don't use those in the field. They are basically looking for quick solutions and troubleshooting as quick as possible. And the way you do that is by swapping out components and see if the problem goes away. Because what you're trying to do is replicate the same issue that you're having once you swap the parts out. So if the problem was a memory issue, I'll replace the memory to see if the problem goes away immediately. If it does, then it's more likely bad memory. Same thing for the CPU, same thing for the motherboard, and so on. So it's the quickest and easiest way to troubleshoot and diagnose issues. So this is why we're using a new power supply here. And what we're going to do is we've got power to the CPU and the 24 pin. We've got the same NVMe drive in. I'm using that small little graphics card. We've got the same RAM in here. We're going to quickly power this on. And we'll see if it boots. And we'll see if the problem goes away. If we get straight to the Windows desktop, then we know there's something that's changed. And you can see straight away, it's now going straight into Windows. So we know that problem is now gone. Well, it could crash. So we need to wait and be patient. But you can see here, we are now getting to the loading screen. And if we had a blue screen or an error code coming up or something like that, like we was getting before, but remember, we was getting no display at this stage at all with the other setup. So the system boots. So what is the problem? That's where you need to start working out. Something has changed. Well, we changed the GPU and we changed the motherboard and we've changed the power supply. And what you'll need to do here now is to try to work out what you think the problem was. I know what the problem is now. It's come clear to what the problem is. But what we're going to do is just for this video, we're going to change the power supply to the original power supply, and then we'll change the GPU to the original GPU as well. And then we'll see if it boots up and see if it works. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm trying to replicate the same problem. So I'm restarting the PC using the restart feature. I'm shutting down the PC and I'm doing a cold boot to see whether the problem comes back. And you can see here we're having no issues whatsoever. It's getting straight to the desktop. It's booting up really fast and we're having no problems whatsoever. And this is why PC repair or errors that you get can lead you down the wrong path and start making you going round in circles. And it can be very, very frustrating if you don't know what you're looking for or you haven't got a clue what you're doing. Because what will happen is you'll just go round in circles. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, if you started off with a fresh, clean install of Windows and it was doing the same problem, you know it's not Windows related. It's going to be a hardware issue. And that is the quickest way of diagnosing a PC for software and hardware. Now, I know this is not a polished video, highly edited and all that sort of stuff, but it's just giving you the general idea of how you can quickly troubleshoot and find out what the problem is. So you can see we're going through the sequence of testing here. We've now gone through the whole shutdown, cold boot, and also we've gone to a restart, and it's working perfectly fine with this setup. So now what we're going to do is we're going to quickly change that GPU over, and the boot sequence is going really, really quickly. So we know we've got a working system here right now. We haven't replicated any of the issues. They've not come back straight away. So what we're going to do is remove the graphics card, and I'll put the original graphics card in and see if it boots up and see if we get the same issue. So I already think that the memory slots on this board have either failed in some way, or there's some component on this board that has let go and it's causing an issue. Because we're using the same NVMe drive and we're also using all the same components apart from the GPU and the power supply, and we're going to test those quickly right now. But if the problem goes away very quickly by just swapping out the board, it's got to be related to this motherboard. And again, it could be a memory related issue, but if it was memory, we would be seeing the same issues on this system by now. Now, you could run mem test and things like that, which I will do off camera and quickly run a test on the memory, but I don't think there is a memory issue. So now we have the RTX 4070 Ti plugged in. The only thing that's on there now that's different is we don't have the all-in-one cooler and we don't have the power supply. That's the only two components that haven't been changed. I'm going to quickly do a restart, a shutdown, and a cold boot, and we'll see whether we can replicate that same issue that we had. But with it booting straight up with no problems whatsoever, it sort of has me to think that it's definitely that motherboard that has got a fault. So you can see swapping parts out has made this job a lot easier. And again, what we're going to do here is I'm just quickly testing the boot up process here to see if there's any problems. And you can see it's so smooth. There's no issues at all. We've gone from having a complete nightmare with our other setup to working perfectly smooth with this setup. So you have to look at what's changed and what's happened, and then you can work out what the problem is. So we already know now that it's not a Windows related issue because obviously the operating system is working flawlessly. You're not getting any blue screens, any error codes or any of that stuff coming up on the screen. We also know that it's not the GPU because we're getting also no issues with the GPU because we've tried both of them and we're not getting any sort of DRAM being stuck on. And that's the thing. You have to quickly swap out components to find out what is causing the issue. Now, of course, what we're trying to do here is replicate the same issue that we had, and it's completely gone away. That tells me that something is related to the motherboard because that's the part we've changed. We've got the GPU from the original setup here. Everything's the same. The only thing that's not the same is the motherboard and the actual power supply. And I'll quickly change the power supply over because I've seen power supplies do some weird stuff too. But I don't think this is the problem. But I will change the power supply just to finally test it to stop people in the comment section saying you should have done this, you should have done that. So we'll quickly change it and we'll test it. So now I've got the original power supply in there with all the other parts. The only thing that's changed is the all-in-one cooler and the motherboard. Now you might be thinking that this is a cooler problem, but it's not because it was functioning perfectly fine and I could feel the liquid going through and stuff like that. But I will test it, but I don't think there is a cooler problem. I do believe it's the motherboard and the motherboard slots, one of those two. So we're going to power this on and we'll see if this boots straight up. If there's an issue, then we know it's the power supply that was causing the problem. So we're going to go ahead and we'll quickly power this on and we'll see whether we get the same issues right here. So hopefully it works and we get straight to the desktop. I'm just going to power on the power supply and we're going to boot right up here and hopefully we see. So if we have any issues here, it will show itself because we've changed the power supply, and straight away that Windows splash screen comes up and we're getting Windows loading straight away. It went straight to the boot LED on the board because this does have diagnostic LEDs, and there's no sluggishness from the boot process. It's going straight into the desktop here, as you can see. So that says it all for me. You would be seeing the same issues. Now, problems don't miraculously change and fix themselves. You would see the same problem, and that's the problem with issues. And this is why this method is the best out there to troubleshoot and diagnose, is swapping out components. Because at the end of the day, if you don't, you're going to go around in circles and it can be very frustrating. So right now, we know that the main part which we've changed is the motherboard. And if that CPU was bad, you would be seeing the same problems, believe you me. Even if you change the motherboard, you would start to see the same problem. Problems just don't disappear. They would be problematic. And this is why I'm trying restarting, shutting down, and also cold boot from start. And we've tried all of these things and they're not causing an issue. You're getting straight to the desktop here. So I can definitely say that we know now that it's probably the board that has failed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below, and let me know honestly what you thought it was at the very beginning, and I'll be interested to read your comments. Now, troubleshooting can drive you crazy. You can go around in circles and start pulling your hair out, because PC repair, when you think you've seen it all, another problem will come up and show itself, and it can be quite tricky. So let me know what you thought at the beginning, what you thought it was, because at the beginning I was starting to feel that it was a operating system issue, but then I started seeing that DRAM light come on, and then I knew something wasn't right. But doing a fresh install of Windows and troubleshooting from there, knowing that the problem has gone away or it's still there after a fresh install, will determine whether you've got a software related issue or a hardware related issue. Pull out all of the peripherals that you don't need on the computer, just to make sure it's not one of those that's causing the issue, and then troubleshoot by swapping out parts and finding out what the issue is. Anyway, with that said, my name has been Brian from briteccomputers.co.uk. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.